I used to
right,
sit at the
right,
kids' table during COVID.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Board of Supervisor regular meeting for Monday, October 7th. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. During the moment of silence, I think it's appropriate to put in our hearts and minds the southwest of Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and soon to be Florida, hit by a lot of bad weather. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I do have to let my board members know that I spoke with Mr. Whitson this afternoon, and he is not able to make it to the day meeting due to his work deadline. And he did ask if I would bring up the request from him to wait until 1 p.m., to the PM meeting to vote on, what is the item number? 8, G8, old business.
So you're asking Mr. Crane to amend his?
No,
I'm
just-
fine not amending it.
Okay. All right, I have an agenda motion. Do I have a second?
What did you say?
I said I'm fine with my motion just to adopt the agenda
Okay,
as
I'll
presented.
second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would just say I know Mr. Whitson's been working on that agenda item, and I think as a courtesy, it would be appropriate to wait for his input in the evening session. I don't really understand why anyone would be averse to including his input on that agenda item, and we should give him the opportunity to participate as a board member. From time to time, unavoidable things come up for all of us where we get detained for any number of reasons, personal or professional. And I would hope that we would all have the courtesy to extend to each other to delay those agenda items, especially as it can be addressed in the same day, just the evening session.
My only comment to that is we pushed this out, I believe, from June. In efforts, we were trying to make sure that everyone was here together. And I hate it when we're not all here. I definitely want to hear from all of my colleagues. But, what if I get a text from my welding instructor, my welding lab is on fire, and I can't make it back tonight? Like, would we then postpone it tonight for me? And if the answer is yes, then when does it end? So I'm just, I hate it
Well, then
to
don't
not
do
hear
it.
from everyone.
Then don't do it. I mean, if you hate it, and heaven forbid one of us should not be able to make it back this evening, I mean, we could always continue it and take care of it later in the week. I mean, that happens from time to time also. But I just think if there's been a specific request to delay the agenda item, and we can accommodate it, that I would like to do that. If y'all are of a different mind, then that's why we vote.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the current agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Thank you. All right, moving into the school report, Superintendent Grimsley.
Good afternoon from your Panther family. We are thrilled to share several exciting highlights from the last month as we continue our commitment to excellence at Rappahannock County Public Schools. Throughout the week of September 9th through 13th, RCPS proudly celebrated National Arts and Education Week, showcasing our students' engagement in fine arts through vibrant photos and activities. We are also in the midst of celebrating National Hispanic Heritage Month, running from September 15th through October 15th. with ongoing posts on our social media, sharing facts, activities, and community events. These celebrations enrich our students' cultural understanding and appreciation. A major highlight for our younger students was the debut of a new scratch-made menu item at RCES, pumpkin spiced French toast casserole. After students had the opportunity to sample and provide feedback, the dish was served as a lunch entree and has been met with overwhelming approval. Our peer mentor reveal party for 8th grade students was another success. Junior and senior mentors were introduced to their mentees through team building challenges, creating strong connections that will continue throughout the school year with monthly meetings and activities. On September 19th, our Community Conversations event featured an important discussion on the impact of cell phones and social media on students. A live stream of a fireside chat with First Lady Suzanne Yunkin and author of The Anxious Generation, Dr. Haidt, about his book and the implications of increased cell phone use among our youth began the evening, followed by a community discussion facilitated by RCHS Principal Dr. Boynton, with insights from Detective Garcia on online safety. The session sparked a thoughtful dialogue among attendees. Thank you for those of you who were able to make it. I appreciate that. And as well as some ideas for continuing to raise awareness about this issue. Stay tuned for a special digital detox challenge coming soon from Commit to Be Fit. In the realm of civic engagement, the class of 2025 participated in the Governor's High School Voter Registration Challenge, where seniors registered to vote with the assistance of our voter registrar, Kim McKiernan. This initiative is helping our students become more involved in the democratic process. Last month at RCHS, senior Hugh Gardner shared his experiences with the RCHS students from his year in Germany as part of the Congress Bundestag Youth Exchange Program. His insights into cultural and language immersion captivated the student body. He also shared a brief update to the school board regarding his life-changing experience at last month's regularly scheduled meeting. In academic achievements, congratulations go to Mrs. Curry's Digital Applications 2 course. Students Addie Hubble, Nolan Brown, Xavier Todd, and Chase Clark already successfully earned their Microsoft Office Specialist credential just 2 months into the school year. That's really impressive. We are also proud of our Junior Panthers of the Month, who were recognized for their good citizenship and leadership across all levels at the elementary school. They all enjoyed a celebratory luncheon with Principal Wissinger and AP Miss Lo Barton to mark their accomplishments. Our FFA chapter, led by our Ag Academy coordinator, Michelle Fincham, is taking action to support those affected by the devastating flooding caused by Hurricane Helene in Southwest Virginia and North Carolina. The FFA is hosting a supply drive to collect essential items such as baby supplies, pet food, toiletries, and basic necessities. Donations can be dropped off at the front office at the high school through October 16th, and we encourage everyone to help our neighbors in need. While we were spared the worst of the flooding in our area, thank God, we did experience some leaks at our elementary school due to our aging roof on the main building. As a result, addressing the roof has now been moved up to a higher priority in our capital improvement plan, so we'll be talking about that at our school board meeting tomorrow night. Looking ahead, the school board meeting will take place tomorrow evening, 6:30 p.m. in the high school library. We will discuss our continuous school improvement plans as well as give a facilities update. Please mark your calendars, looking ahead to 2024 Fall Concert on October 22nd at 6:30 p.m., where our talented band will showcase their musical skills. Dig Pink Volleyball is scheduled for tonight. I know you all are busy, but come out and support Dig Pink. That's where we honor breast cancer survivors as well as raising awareness for the cause. Powder Puff football is this Wednesday. And of course, homecoming weekend is this weekend. So come out to the football game on Friday. The dance is on Saturday. As always, we appreciate the support from the board and community. The support helps us continue to provide remarkable opportunities for our students. So thank you so much. Do you have any questions for me?
I do, thank you. First of all, I just want to say, I'm sorry that I couldn't attend that discussion. It sounded like a fascinating discussion. I think Dr. Haidt's incredible, and he's written some really important work. I did want to ask you what the rules are currently.
Sure.
Just because I'm unaware kind of what the cell phone usage is in school. I know that it varies by maybe even county, maybe it's the state. And then the second question I wanted to, well, you answer that one first.
Okay. So the rules, Executive Order 33 is really pushing for the entire day cell phone free in all schools. Currently, we have that right now at the elementary school, even up through 7th grade, no cell phones out during the day at all. At the high school, it's all day except for lunchtime. So students are allowed to use their cell phones at lunch. It may or may not change depending on how strong the executive order and the legislation behind it gets pushed out, and also what the school board will do with that. As we get closer, we're awaiting our VSBA policy adjustments to see how well that aligns with what the order says. And also how well the students are doing with it. So far, they've been doing pretty well. We're getting further into the school year, so you can see them testing those boundaries a little bit, but overall, very well.
So right now, are they allowed to keep it in their bag, but they can't
Yes.
take it out?
Off and
They're-
away.
Okay,
Yes. And it's not even supposed to be on their person at all, off and away in the book bag locker somewhere, yeah,
got it, except for during lunch. Okay.
except lunch.
And the second thing is about the elementary school roof.
Yes.
I would like to know quickly, or briefly, if that's been a CIP project.
I'm sorry?
If that has been a CIP project.
Yes, sir. It'd
How
be-
long it's been a CIP project?
Yep.
At what level has it moved through
Sure.
priority? And where is it now?
Absolutely, that's an easy one. So it has been on our 5-year capital improvement plan since we began that 5 years ago. It wasn't in our initial tranche that we condensed a lot of those HVAC projects and things in that last go-around. So it's been on our radar to do in FY '27. So we are going to switch some things around and make it FY '26. So
Got it.
that's just a bit of a change, not using any additional funding, just moving things around in priorities.
Got it. And do you have a budget for that? Did you budget for it for 2027?
For FY '27, we have an estimation, but we're going to get more recent quotes and build that in for next year.
How bad was the leak?
So with that much rain, it was really tough to diagnose, but what the roofers have told us is that where the seam comes across in the main building, just because it's aging, it just came apart just a little bit, but all the way down across. So, and then when the water, that much water, seeps in for a prolonged period of time, and then you get into all the balusters and cross members in the roof, the water just kind of goes all over the place.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of leaks we had to take care of, and it was like the bucket brigade going around to try to catch everything, but it's been quite a project.
So I understand, if
You're
you
welcome.
put it on your plan 5 years ago, but when was the problem identified?
When it started raining last.
No,
this
I
much,
mean,
yeah.
if you put it on the plan 5 years ago, then you knew it was coming. Was there any trouble with leaking at that point? or
Not to this extent at
Between
all.
the 5, from then to now?
No, it was projected based on the regular life cycle of when
Okay.
facilities upgrades should be done, and that was when it was scheduled to go. But because of what we witnessed, the repairs are done, and it has been fixed, but we worry about that occurring again. So it'd be good to prioritize that to be sure that it just moves up 1 year.
Is the new capital improvement project a new roof, or is it fixing the current?
No, that would be a replacement, yes.
Is that the original?
I believe it is.
Really? Wow.
Maybe with another upgrade, I'm not sure. Dr. Bolt will give that whole
Never been up
the
there.
whole update, but yeah, 1968. I know there's been, and it is on the original building, so the primary roof and the cafeteria and the gym roof has already been replaced. So this is the next piece in that cycle. It was just going to be 2 years out, but now we'd like it to be next year.
Got
I'm
it.
sorry, Van, was it the original roof?
Yes,
Was that the question? Okay.
yeah.
The Anxious Generation, I have told so many people about the book,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple of the findings that I just found amazing were young ladies and mental health and
Mm-hmm.
hospital visits going up. Since '96, I think, is when they said the spike started,
Mm-hmm.
or I guess gradually. And then young men, not broken bones, because they're playing on their phone and not outside, which, we grew up doing. So I found both of those very interesting and sad at the same time.
Yes.
And I'll just say, for the benefit of anyone listening or watching later who might be parents, my biggest takeaway was they're not gonna be able to catch everyone on their cell phones as they roll out this, as they break habits that our young people have established. But also, the big ask was for us parents not to text them back.
Yes.
When they text us during the day. And I think
We're
the
going
next
start
day, I'll share that my son sent me a text he sent me a screenshot of the shoes he wants me to buy him for homecoming. And I just ignored it. I ignored it. And, we're
Teaching parents too.
Yes, so it was it was as much about teaching us to not reply to those texts and to, help rewire their brains and their habits. So.
Yes, we can only do so much at school. This is going to take a collective effort from the parents as well. We all need to work together. It's not something we can change by ourselves, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Griswold.
Next, we have Company 4 monthly report. Dr. Hill?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Our EMS calls in September were 18, and we got out on 16 of them, and we transported 4 people. Fire calls, there were 2, and we got out on both of them. We had the station staffed 447 hours during the month. We continue to add members. We've been doing a lot of buildings and grounds work. If you've driven by, you might have noticed that. And we've gone through all of our old equipment, anything that can't be used because it's out of date or whatever, we're trying to get into the hands of people that need it. I think the other companies in the county are doing the same thing. Any questions?
Thank you very
Well,
much.
that was easy.
Thank you, Dr. Hill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we move into public comment. Anyone wishing to speak, please be recognized. We'll keep the comments to 5 minutes or less. And once we're done with the courtroom, we'll move to Zoom.
Did you want the timer thing?
Yeah, let's do that. And Mr. Curry did some research. We did 5. So I don't have to keep track of that, which is great. Anyone wishing to speak during public comment? Seeing no hands, I'll move to Zoom. Anyone wishing to speak on Zoom, please raise your Zoom hand and be recognized. The fastest public comment ever. All right, no hands on Zoom. We'll close public comments.
What time it is?
Thank you for finding that clock. All right, we move into the consent agenda.
I'm gonna make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Appointments, sir.
The board will recall last month you filled a vacancy on the Agricultural and Forestal District Advisory Committee. And then we had a resignation. Mr. Miller decided to resign given that he's not in the county as much as he used to be. Mr. Davis, I reached out to him and asked him if he knew anybody who might be a good fit. And he said Bill Taylor would be a great fit. So I reached out to Mr. Taylor after asking Ms. Smith if she would like to do that. And Mr. Taylor said he'd love to participate, and he submitted an application.
I move that we appoint William W. Taylor to the Forestal and Agricultural District Board. What is the date that the tenure ends?
These are for life.
Good behavior.
Lucky. For the lifetime appointment
Uh-oh.
to the Agricultural and Forestry Districts Advisory Committee.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just would like to say that I am thrilled to have 2 new people on this not used committee. I don't know why it was never used, but that are actually familiar with cutting timber. I think it is incredible.
Yep.
And I'm really, really happy that Kurt put Bill Taylor's name forward. I think that's excellent.
Great.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
So next steps for that meeting, I mean, I guess we could address it in the November.
Ms. Summers is working on scheduling the Ag and Forestal District Advisory Committee to precede an upcoming planning commission meeting. That'd probably be November.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Oh, well, you guys will be.
I mean, construction and
Never say
renovation
never.
projects.
Never let ever.
Happy to go through this list in as much detail as you would like. We were alerted relative to the Virginia 250 Preservation Fund grant opportunity that our pre-application was accepted. Apparently it was very popular and many pre-applications were accepted. So we're told that it is very oversubscribed. So we now need to submit the full application by October 18th, and we'll see what we get out of it. Anything is good.
Can you explain that real quick?
There's I think there's 135 million in ask for 20 million. So,
This is a
I
grant
gotcha,
program
gotcha.
that just
Yeah,
came up
Okay,
this
gotcha.
year, right?
yeah, and this is tied with the Virginia 250.
Okay, gotcha.
Glavine Homes is working on on the scope that was the board approved and under agreement. They reported out to the Planning Oversight Committee on September 9, and they will be online this evening to brief the board as the board requested. The EMS Sheriff Garage building is still set on the side burner. The school board office garage generator project, that equipment is expected in November, December, and there's a invitation for bids out on the street seeking installers. If you know electrical folks, have them take a look. The elementary school shelter generator project is under design and worked through some preliminary layouts with school staff and selected a preliminary layout. I'll be meeting REC out there next week. Also released the PO to Fidelity Power for the equipment so they can prepare the detailed submittals so our electrical engineer can review them, and then we can order that equipment, which has a really, really long lead time. The camera system, there's another agenda item for this, though there's not a lot of activity. I've received detailed cost breakdowns from Daily, and I've been working with another provider, and it's taking them some time. They're actually going to come out and walk the buildings this week or next week. And then the fire department ADA improvement, that contract has been released to a local contractor, and they should be getting started very soon, and with the completion date scheduled so that the new facilities will be available for election day. That's all I got there.
Excellent. County Office Network.
I just mentioned this, I'm working with a second provider who I've talked to over the long haul about VoIP, who, through additional discussion, they said that they can and do perform network upgrades as well. And so, given the magnitude of cost provided by Daily, we're going to explore whether those costs are reasonable. We'll find out.
New commercial activity, that's Mr. Whitson. Anything you know of? Raw.
At your last meeting, Mr. Goff and I shared a new draft agreement with Rawl for them to operate the animal shelter located at the Amosville Refuse and Recycling Center. That draft was sent to the Rawl representatives. They have deemed the draft to be acceptable to them. And then last month, the board asked for this to return with an opportunity for action. And so here it is before you. Art, I can answer questions about the draft agreement, the proposed agreement. It's pretty short and to the point. Rawl operates our shelter in accordance with state law, we provide a building and maintain it. And the board appropriates money every year to fund the whole thing.
Do they have their own insurance liability?
They have their own liability insurance, workers' comp insurance, but the county's insurance covers the structures. And that's listed in the agreement.
Do I have a motion?
Oh, go ahead.
I'll move to authorize the board to execute the provided agreement with Raw Recording regarding animal shelter services after review and approval to its legal form by the county attorney.
I will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Thank you for getting that done. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, Van, fire levy.
So we had a fire levy meeting several weeks ago, and where we approved the company's submissions, and we'd had a relatively quick discussion about fire levy board necessity, and I mentioned to them the discussion that we had, and I think generally folks thought that, you know, it was a useful tool to kind of go over this stuff, and that there is a difference between, because there was kind of two discussions going on, and Gary, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in my mind, it was sort of like, you know, the reviewing of the reconciliation process versus this other side discussion that's going on about wanting to raise the capital amount. Anyway, I came away with feeling that, you know, that there are some things to discuss in terms of the budget reconciliation process as it's gotten much, much cleaner. It was in a very different place, you know, years ago. And now with a rework of how they're submitted, they're all incredibly transparent and clean and accessible to the public. But we didn't get into much more of a discussion over, you know, the meat over whether, hey, would you guys really want to get rid of this or not? It was just more of a kind of an informational discussion. But I did come away thinking that people definitely think that there's value in it. And in terms of the capital expenditure amount going up, Gary, you got an
That's the
email?
next agenda
Okay,
item.
Okay, I'm conflating the two. We kind of had a discussion about both there. So anyway, that's what I said that I would report back to you guys.
Well,
Go ahead.
I'll just say that I spoke with he who sits on this board on behalf of Jackson District, and I spoke with Chief Carter, and they both see value. They see this as a good thing. So I understand that it's not required, but I'm getting the sense that the fire levy board should stay as it is.
I just wanted to say, and excuse me, my allergies are really acting up now that all that rain is left. That's the price you pay when that moves out. But I think the fire levy is very useful, and it provides another level of oversight, citizen oversight, which I think is critical, and we should engage whenever that kind of a mechanism, especially when it's already in place, and it does provide useful feedback. The criticism that I heard at the last meeting, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that some of the chiefs think it's inconvenient to be in the meetings because they're long, and they don't want to be there for that long of a block of time. And I wondered if there was an option to kind of schedule. Of course, everyone's welcome to stay for the whole meeting, but generally know that however long it takes, 15 minutes usually maybe to work through each company, that company 1 goes on at 7, company 2 goes on at 7:15, or have some way to schedule them so that they're not beholden to wait through the next meeting, and they can set an expectation that I do have to be there, but I only really need to be there for half an hour in case they're running early or running late. And that's just a suggestion, because I do think it's sensible to be, to acknowledge the value of volunteers' time, especially when they're already doing so much for the community.
Or would it be possible to make attendance, virtual attendance permissible in this case?
Yeah.
Just, again, suggestions.
I think that it's something that I'll talk to Chair Stenner about. I mean, I think that that's exactly right, is that there are ways to make the meetings more efficient for everybody. Yeah. So I think that that kind of scheduling could really go a long way, and you're doing all the things you're trying to do.
Right.
Provide oversight, actually physically meet so that everybody can have input, but not, I mean, the folks that are coming in with their books of receipts often will get calls. They're working.
Right.
So to your point, it's something that we started this discussion, and I just think this is mislabeled a little bit. That's fine. It's not really about the necessity. It should be more like, how can we, just facilitate efficiency? So I'll bring that back to them and say, hey, But I do agree that is what I heard too, which was, yeah, we think there's value, but maybe there's some other discussion that we can have about tightening it up. Overall, I have to say, I think it's going really very well in the time that I've been on there. It's gotten to be pretty smooth.
I'm so glad we got the bookkeepers, because that has helped everybody that's needed them.
All right.
Thank you for your efforts.
Yeah.
Capital funding threshold.
Do you want me to do this?
Sure.
So related to that last item, the rules on how volunteer fire companies request or submit eligible expenses for fire levy board consideration are documented in a series of records, including the fire levy guidelines. It's basically a narrative description of what's allowed and what's not allowed, and the rules of the road. And included within that document is the kind of the basis of the services agreement stating that the board aspires to provide 100% operational funding. And so what is operational funding versus what is capital funding? The document identifies that capital funding is a new purchase value in excess of $10,000 and has an expected lifespan of 10 years. And so that shows up in those guidelines 3 times. The Fire and Rescue Association took a vote at an earlier meeting and forwarded a request that was considered by the Fire Levy Board at their last meeting to increase the 10,000 number to 50,000. Fire Levy Board reviewed that, had some discussion, and thought a 5-fold increase maybe was a little bit too much right now. And Chief Burke committed to going back to the association and talking to the body again, and he did that at their September 2024 meeting, and the body agreed to modify the request to change it from 10,000 to 25,000, which was a number that was kind of discussed during the Fire Levy Board meeting. Chief Burke stated that a letter would be forthcoming, including some justifications on why the association thought 25,000 was the right number. I think they intend to show cost increases to turnout gear and things like that over time, and to show maybe a 2.5 modifier is appropriate. So we don't have that letter yet. All those guys are very busy. But the normal process for how this is done is that in the past anyways, the Fire Levy Board, and this goes to the last agenda item, would review the guidelines, suggest and recommend to the board modifications of those guidelines, and the board would adopt changes if you saw fit. So the normal course of action would be for the association to submit that request to the Fire Levy Board. The Fire Levy Board goes through the document, redlines it, changes however they think is most appropriate, makes a formal recommendation to this body, who then you vote on it. I think the board arguably could just change it if you wanted to, but I think it'd be best if it went through that sequential process.
So the discussion that we had, I heard resoundingly that the companies / chiefs that were there really thought that the $10,000 number was out of date with the current reality, and that's just clear. To Mr. Curry's point, I think that the number that was originally kind of floated out there was then landed back on this reasonable number, which honestly, and there was examples during the meeting of what that was, what it would get them. And I think it's incredibly rational, reasonable, and necessary. I think that there's just the reality of getting things done is just getting different. So I fully support this, and I think that it's a good way to move forward, and I think that whatever we can do to help our volunteers do what they do best is do what they do very well.
Why don't you make a motion? I think you'll get a
I
second.
don't think we have a motion in front of us that we need to make, do we?
I guess-
do we?
Well, and like I said,
think
you
you're
can
waiting for
take
the-
action. There are a few
Is there
things that
something
are,
is there,
I'm
or should
waiting
we,
to hear
how
back
about,
from-
should we send something to?
the guidelines are interrelated, and I think this section 6D needs some cleanup and work, particularly as the numbers changed.
But you find value in doing it here, sending it to them, then going back?
I think so, because then they can look at the whole guideline and say,
Okay,
maybe
cool.
this is
Well, then I'll
the
make,
shiny object, but there could be some other things that the Fire League Board thinks should change.
can I make a motion then to have staff reflect that $25,000 figure in the services agreement? Or wherever it needs to be?
In the guideline,
In the guidelines, right, in the guidelines.
I'll second that.
for it to come back and be voted on by the board.
That's correct.
Yes.
It's a way to show that there's a consensus of the board to act on this recommendation.
It would be interesting because I think the business of fire and rescue is pretty consistent. You know what buildings need and equipment needs are and stuff like that. They just got more expensive. It would be interesting if we could pick like 3 items, turnout gear, HVAC system, something else, and have kind of where the price is today, and then every few years do a trigger check to see if those prices have gone up or have stayed the same. It seems to me you could do this with a methodical way instead of just, let's do 25,000.
I think that's where Ms. Chief Burke suggested that the letter was aiming,
Gonna help?
but we don't have that yet.
So do we have a motion and a second that I've forgotten what the motion
Mr.
is?
Carney, Ms. Smith, to have staff draft the edit to the fire levy guidelines for future consideration of the board. I'm assuming that'll stop off at the fire levy board in the interim.
Yeah. And then they can, yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next item, action related to county administrator's performance evaluation.
So I think Gary mentioned it on here that I had a discussion with Gary and I came up with something that I thought was incredibly fair and compensated Gary in a way that I think probably even undervalues his skill set and what he does for this county. I know that raising salaries is not always a popular thing, and he is in a remarkable position being the head administrator of this county in the sense that there's just kind of no parallel. I think that what he brings saves us so much time, effort, and resources and money that I am, I'm honestly just, I love working with Mr. Curry, and I think that he understands the county. It's difficult to understand this county, and I think it takes a while. I think that there is some sticker shock that comes with raising any salary and with salaries currently, kind of like the last agenda item we were just talking about. We happen to live in a market economy where, Mr. Curry could easily take his skill set and go to 5 other counties and still live in Rappahannock and make more money. This is something we see happen at the school. This is something we see local businesses have an issue with. And so I'm aware of it. I feel comfortable with what I proposed to Mr. Curry, and so with that, I'll make a motion to, let's see, where's the agenda?
It's a resolution.
To move to adopt the provided resolution authorizing the chair to execute the provided amended county administrator employment agreement effective retroactively on July 1, 2024, and appropriate related necessary funds.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I did want to just ask, is there any sort of language in this agreement? I know we're seeing it most recently in a town, a neighboring town, where a government employee left their government position after ushering through an application for a large business and resigned from the government and went into the employ of the large business. Is there any sort of clause like that to prevent any of our key employees from doing the same sort of thing?
Well, this would only affect one key employee, so it wouldn't have anything to do with anybody else, but there's nothing like that in this agreement.
Yeah, I think that's
Who I would go
something,
work for, but.
I mean, knowing people's inclination to protect our county and having these sort of growth projects in neighboring counties, I think that we should explore the option to build in that kind of a clause into any of our employees' contracts. I think it would only be prudent to do that. And I think we all know the large project that I'm speaking of in Warrenton. And I'm sure if you had asked any of those people if they had to worry about this kind of thing, they would have laughed and said it'll never happen here. But it has, and it did. I think that was brought up in some emails that I received, and I think you all received too from one of my constituents, that is a very reasonable way to protect the county and something we should certainly investigate. I mean, I have a number of reasons that I can't support this for a multitude of reasons. I don't believe that we should implement salary increases in an unplanned, isolated manner without regard for our budget and recent pay scale study. It is fiscal responsibility 101. We should not approve this increase of recurring expense that is not funded by recurring revenue. Unanticipated interest earnings are the revenue source for the increase request. With interest rates now falling, approving this recurring expense without a reliably recurring revenue source will create a funding shortfall and may require a tax increase. The optics are terrible. The proposed increase will undoubtedly have a trickle-down effect, as many levels of employees can have 457B accounts. Just last year, the county completed a multi-year comprehensive pay scale study. It would be irresponsible to stray from our current position and undo our diligent work. We've also reviewed the agreements of similarly sized surrounding localities, and the administrator's current contract terms are already generous. Some have suggested the board should emulate the school board's contract with their superintendent. This notion can and should be rejected on face value. The Board of Supervisors cannot be bound by the actions of the school board, and the superintendent's position requires a higher degree of education, larger staff, and far more complex organization. Not once in the recent pay scale study was it ever suggested we consider the school system's wages. We should not lose our way in these weeds. Knowing there are costly projects and decreasing revenues ahead, the board should leave this unanticipated accrued interest in our fund balance for future needs. And that's the statement I've circulated to people in my district that have reached out to me about this issue. And I think these issues, along with the very excellent point circulated by one of my constituents should cause us all to pump the brakes hard in adopting these terms.
Thank you.
Mr. Curry's compensation package has been at the forefront of my mind for the better part of 3 months now. And I will, before I get in any further, I'll say that I've also, during this 3-month period, I also had the benefit of completing the VACO supervisor certification program, where I've met, upwards of 35 other local government supervisors, some other administrators, some other county attorneys, and the like. And I just want to go on record as saying, when I would introduce myself and say where I was from and who I worked with, more of them than not spoke very highly of Mr. Curry and told me how lucky Rappahannock County was to have him as our county administrator. Those remarks came from counties large, small, urban, rural. They came from a large range of different folks. So I just want to make sure that I say that. There's no part of how we as Rappahannock spend our money or pay our employees or treat our employees that I take lightly. When I consider all the voices that I have heard that have reached out directly to me about this compensation package, it was an interesting breakdown. It broke down to about 40%. I had a couple people call me and say, give him what he wants, just as it is. And then, of course, I had folks call me and they had concerns. And then and that was a 40-40 breakdown. And then I had about another 20% of folks call me, and they were driven what seemed to be by some personality, extreme emotional opinions in both camps, if you will, both ways. So that leaves me with making the decision based on basically a 50-50 split in opinion. I was elected to hear from the hardworking folks of Jackson, and I make myself available to do so. And I cast my vote. I need to cast my vote based on what I think is the best interest of Rappahannock in looking forward and looking ahead. 2 areas of this package that seem to cause a lot of heartburn, probably more heartburn than anything, included the 6-month severance pay in the event of termination, and the payout for his pay time out and his sick leave. When I look at that, those were terms that were negotiated at the time of his hiring. And they may not have been terms that I would have negotiated. I think I probably would have played harder ball there. But nevertheless, those were the terms by which Mr. Curry accepted this contract and made both career and life-changing decisions. So I say let that serve as a cautionary tale to all involved, all future boards, this board, everyone considering any future contracts. Above all else, though, we really must consider the large-scale generational capital improvements and infrastructure projects on the immediate horizon. I believe Mr. Curry's extensive local government experience, his attention to detail, and his civil engineering background make him well-suited to help navigate these efforts. I believe that any savings gained by not approving the proposed compensation package would be easily lost in the transition to a new administrator. I worry that we could be stepping over dollars to pick up dimes when we look at the big picture compared to the projects that we have coming before us.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say, Mr. Carney, thank you for your negotiation efforts on the contract. I know that the increase Mr. Curry has asked for is substantial. That said, he is a true asset to Rappahannock County. I have spent multiple months gathering data and speaking with people, taking my fiduciary responsibility on this issue very seriously. I believe the responsible thing to do is to agree to the compensation package before us. Gary Curry's list of responsibilities is longer and more complex than faced by any prior administrator for this county. And I truly believe he's earned it. His diverse skill set allows him to take on more responsibility competently than most new candidates for his office would offer. He's known to and respected by those in other counties with whom he interacts, and his dedication and skill are apparent to those of us here with whom he works. We are currently saving a significant amount of money thanks to his management of county issues. And he's on top of a number of major projects that will be concluded in coming years that likely would not be finished as well if left to someone without Gary's skill and familiarity with each project's history to date. Let me give the background and specifics that led me to these conclusions. When John McCarthy worked here, state requirements were less and the day-to-day needs for citizens were fewer. Debbie Kaiser faced rough treatment and ugliness, and she did not stay. Brenda Garten was strong enough to deal with a board that didn't work well together, but she was here as a temporary. When she was leaving, she highly recommended Gary Curry for a permanent CA, having worked with him for years. During one of her last meetings, Brenda presented the board with an exit list of recommendations for moving the county forward. This list had 55 items on it, and it's available on board docs. Our previous CA clearly had too much on his daily list to keep up with many items, some of which are required by state code, and the county can face penalties from the state for not fulfilling these requirements. Thankfully, we hired Gary, and he takes rules and regulations very seriously. With his team's help, he has completed most of this list. Being penny wise and pound foolish has cost us money in the past. The lack of exterior building maintenance is one example. The work was put off for years due to the lack of building committee approval, and now, past COVID, and in this inflationary time, the price will be much higher. Years ago, the Sewer Authority saved money by choosing an inexpensive repair for the sewer system in Sperryville. Last month, we learned that the temporary savings selected then will cost a lot of money now. Gary worked in Gloucester government for 13 years. As Brenda says, quote, "We have a gem in Gary." His unwavering commitment to Rappahannock County and his diverse skill set encompassing civil engineering, procurement, and contract management make him incredibly valuable. The current climate in public service can deter qualified individuals from pursuing such roles, and we are fortunate to have someone of Gary's caliber. While significant, the proposed increase of $2,500 a month is an investment in the stability that Gary provides. His dedication is evident. He is present in the office 6 days most weeks, and he remains reachable around the clock. It is noteworthy that Gary has not received a raise beyond cost of living adjustments for the past 7 years. Over this period, he has taken on diverse roles, acting not just as the county administrator, but also as the maintenance and ground supervisor, refuse supervisor. His efforts in refuse alone are saving the county over $350,000 annually. IT and Public Information Officer. He directs building and zoning and serves as FOIA officer for boards and committees. I spoke with a citizen who gave a very interesting perspective. She has children in our school system. I explained the situation to her, and she asked me how many homes we have in the county. I answered 2,500 to 3,000. She said, so, $1 a house per month, $12 per year to keep our current CA. From that practical view, given what Gary brings us and no significant raise for 7 years, the decision almost seems easy. As we prepare to embark on several significant time-consuming projects in the coming years, from essential building repairs to the development of a new courthouse to expansion of fiber internet access, We need Gary's experience and dedication to guide us through these initiatives successfully. The upcoming challenges necessitate a competent and committed administrator at the helm. Bringing on someone new to the history of these efforts will not be good for any one of them. Making a change now, in my opinion, would be irresponsible. We need an administrator with the strong dedication, knowledge, experience, and skill set Gary has to guide us through each of these projects. And again, I support the compensation package being presented.
I just want to note that when, being the only supervisor still on this board, when the refuse solution was entertained, I think sometimes folks don't know that that decision was a board decision. And that was not a light board decision to make a change to the way we structure our refuse. That was, here's two plans. What are we doing? Are we parting ways with the old and figuring it out going forward? Are we going to try this new thing? So the refuse savings was a result of a board decision.
It was on the board, and you voted to keep
That was
Updike.
right after you joined the board.
I was still on it.
Right,
Okay.
right out, but the groundwork was laid by the previous board. Those decisions that led up to the final vote, which I think was in March of that year, or maybe earlier, were laid by the previous board. Are we walking away from what was before, or are we going to ride this out? And it was a very deliberate decision by the board to walk away from it. And I don't think it's fair, especially as the majority of those folks aren't here to defend themselves, to blame failures with moving courthouse design forward or any of the other buildings forward, to blame that on building committee representatives who aren't here to defend themselves. Because the bottom line is, the buck stops with the board. And the building committee consistently updated on the board everything they were doing.
I was just talking maintenance that never made it to the board.
There were times when we would bring larger scale items to the board, but maintenance was in the mix too. So, and I mean, if you have problems with the reporting that you were receiving, which I know Mr. Carney's voiced many times, not getting minutes. I mean, Mr. Curry was an attendee at all of those committee meetings as well. So I don't want it to fall on the wayside that, yes, the county administrator structures information for the board, but ultimately board actions and decisions guide the county. Now, clearly we have a difference of opinion on this matter, which is fine, but these are details that I think are important to talk about.
I agree. I think the details really, really matter. And that's why I don't want to lose Mr. Curry. And we can't keep him here.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and this is roll call.
Yeah, it's a resolution.
Ms. Comer,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Nay.
Mr. Carney,
Aye.
and I also. All right. Moving on in the agenda under new business, we have BCE Rappahannock Town Hall meeting. Sure.
Ms. Smith requested that this item be included on the agenda. Mr. Downing reached out to board members, letting you know that he was holding a meeting on October 15th at 6:30 at their offices in the meeting room to discuss what Cooperative Extension is doing in the community and to discuss reestablishing an Extension Leadership Council. I think Ms. Smith thought maybe there would be some benefit of board members coordinating to see which, if any, board members will attend. I do plan to attend.
And I do know Mr. Whitson is available to attend, and he had said he would be there. Any other discussion? Okay. OMD.
Yes. as the board is aware, there have been some big changes happening relative to operational medical director. And Darren gives his regrets. He's enjoying some much-needed time off, hopefully
He's
far away
online.
from here. Is he online?
I mean, we got a Darren. I assume it's the Darren.
Well, if he wants, hey,
Okay.
Darren, stay Darren, you're welcome to raise your hand, and I'll bring you up. But he prepared, might be in a vehicle,
Having
parked in a
changes.
parking lot somewhere. At any rate, Dr. Jenks informed, who is the OMD for Fauquier County and Rappahannock County, informed Rappahannock County and all of our EMS agencies that he was going to be unable to continue serving as the OMD after the end of this calendar year. Darren has been working hard over the last many months to discuss and talk with other potential operational medical directors. These doctors must have certain criteria or classifications from the state, so there isn't a giant universe of individuals who can do this. Dr. Joseph, after having discussions with Darren, has, I think, entered the conversation with some trepidation, knowing that we have several different EMS agencies. And after having some conversations with Darren, with the chiefs of the EMS agencies, and getting some assurance that all of the EMS agencies in the county had an interest to move forward with same protocols, similar processes, Dr. Joseph agreed to join us as our OMD. There are several agreements attached to this agenda item. Each EMS agency would enter this agreement, including the Rappahannock County Fire and Rescue Department. And the agreements are set up with 3 signatories. I'll just pull up the counties. That of the EMS agency and the obligations of the EMS agency, that of the OMD, and then that of the county. For the Rappahannock County Fire and Rescue Department, it might seem odd that the county is signing and the EMS agency. But the county is agreeing to take some overarching responsibilities for the coordination of services. And the last bullet, which is important, paying annual salary to the OMD as a contract employee to perform the duties that are included in the position description that are attached. It's my understanding that each of the chiefs has reviewed this and found it generally acceptable and is prepared to sign this as soon as the board finds it appropriate. The salary is specifically not listed in this agreement and would be expected to be appropriated by the board on an annual basis. Mr. Stevens has discussed $20,000 a year with Dr. Joseph. I've heard from at least one other board member that they thought $30,000 per year was made more sense. Those are decisions that can be made whenever the board thinks it's appropriate. The current Rappahannock County Fire and Rescue Department budget, because Mr. Stevens is providing his services part-time and without benefits, there are savings in that department that are there in case we need to hire a full-time person. And so those savings could easily pay the $20,000 for at least the balance of the current fiscal year. I can try to answer any other questions the board has. Chester Gap is not included in this because their current OMD is through Lord Fairfax over in Warren County. But discussions with them suggest that they probably will move over to Dr. Joseph as well. But when we start out with Dr. Joseph, we're just going to keep using the Fauquier protocols. And then over the next several months, with all the chiefs, develop our own protocols. And as soon as that happens, then it would make sense for Chester Gap to come on board rather than all of their individuals have to get checked out through the Fauquier protocols, only to get checked out again with new protocols.
I'll move to authorize the county administrator to sign the provided RCRF.
RCFRD agreement and other EMS agency agreements with the new OMD director, Dr. Jeffrey Joseph.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Does it make sense for the companies to sign first?
We'll work out those logistics. I just wanted to make sure that I could commit the county and the board to the county bullets. And I think they're all, Mr. Stevens has worked this out so that all this is going to be happening electronically. They've got DocuSign, and it'll be much easier to handle. And then going forward, they will also be handling many other documents through DocuSign. And Darren, who presumably is our Darren, raised his hand. So.
Can you remind me, where's Dr. Joseph located?
I think he's up towards Gainesville. He's the current OMD for the Jiffy Lube Live Performance Center, or something like that. It's not. Darren, I don't know what to tell you other than I'm trying to ask you to unmute. I can't unmute you, though. You have to do it yourself.
I just know he's done a lot of work on it, and I'm so thankful that we have a strong OMD that wants to.
He's
Support
talked
it.
to several, my understanding, several individuals who might have worked out, but for one reason or another, it just didn't make sense for them. So I'm very grateful, particularly at this time when we're also going through all the changes with the pharmaceuticals.
Darren, are you able to unmute? Not that you can tell me if you can't. Can he chat if he can't unmute?
Yeah, you can chat, Darren.
Send us a note. That's what I kind of thought it would say.
It might be
You know,
like
all
star
caps-
6 if you're on a phone.
I was gonna
or-
say.
It's more effective
Star
than
six.
actually even yelling. It really gets to the point.
And if typing works, you can just type in the
Type,
chat.
yeah. Voice to text. No, that's dangerous.
Yeah. You know what else I can try? I can try to make you co-host.
That should work.
Can you unmute him now that he's co-host?
No. Oh, hey,
Hey, Darren.
now we might have a technical. Hold on a second. You're
Please.
unmuted. That's not what we want, is it?
Can you hear me now?
Technology, come
Yeah,
on.
yeah. Oh, now say something, Darren.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Hey, there you go.
Hey.
Thank you. My apologies. I haven't checked all of them. I believe that we sent the agreements out through DocuSign. And, I haven't looked before this meeting, but I know at least 3 of them have come back already. We had to make some changes to the Washington. It was regarding title, so I know they reviewed it. That was the only issue. We've updated that, and the correct documents are in, Board Docs. We just dealt with their legal name. But as far as I know, all the chiefs were open, they signed, or were about to. And some of the trepidation that Mr. Curry had spoken about was, there's a lot of risk associated with OMBs now in terms of narcotic security. And because that responsibility is transitioning from the hospital pharmacist to a combination of our medical director, who will be the prescriber, and each of the agencies who will also be responsible for the security of the medications. So I've spoken with all the chiefs. We've agreed to use, although we're approaching this independently, we've all agreed to approach narcotic security and all the security pieces the same, with one single policy. And I think that removed a lot of the concern. It'd be challenging for anyone to come in and have to deal with 5 different sets of rules for 5 different agencies, all within the same county. So, in speaking to everyone, we've all agreed to come under one umbrella of rules in terms of pharmacy exchange and medication security. And even all of our forms now, instead of being individual agency forms, are all done on each of their own masthead, but they're all identical in look and purpose, so he's not having to wonder why all these things look differently. Did that answer any of the questions? I'm sorry.
That was very clear. Thank you, Darren.
I have
I
an
appreciate it.
important question. Where are you?
I'm in Michigan, near Fishtown.
Awesome.
Good for
I'm
you.
gonna explore the UP shortly, probably as soon as this part of the meeting's over.
Much appreciate all your efforts on this. I know it was very time-consuming.
So I believe Dr. Joseph is ready to kind of get rolling right away, and as soon as we get these documents signed up, I think we'll have a pretty quick transition. Is that correct, Darren?
Yes, so Fauquier Pharmacy at their last meeting signaled that instead of waiting till the 26th, they want to pull all of their narcotics back, I think on the 16th, so it ramped up our schedule a little bit. But we, I think we'll be okay in talking to everyone. He is set to go. He also serves as the medical director for the AEC, which is an educational private company that teaches EMT and paramedic courses throughout Northern Virginia. So he's very interested in being hands-on and getting involved in our training. I'm really proud of what we accomplished in Fauquier in terms of EMS with expanding the scope of our paramedics and our BLS providers as well. But that one-size-fits-all approach doesn't necessarily translate well in the country. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to work with a medical director that we bonded with to establish not only new treatment protocols that best meet our needs, but more importantly, new release procedures that are a little more palatable for a rural setting that doesn't have a high call volume. So these are all things on the table. We've started on some preliminary paperwork or some preliminary work on this. The idea is once this is done, we'll start to form some small committees to work with him directly and move forward on those things.
Thank you, sir. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thanks, Darren.
Thanks,
Enjoy
Darren.
the rest of your time up there.
Enjoy.
Let's go.
Community AED program.
Yes. Well, Ms. Donahue, you and Mr. Whitson have worked on this a long time, try to get more AEDs into the community. My understanding is that you became aware of citizens in the community who are willing to make sizable donations to help make that happen. Those citizens have been connected with Rapid Home, who's offered to serve kind of as a fiscal agent to receive those donations and coordinate with the county to purchase similar, consistent AED devices that can be deployed. And to facilitate all that, there's an agreement that is attached to board docs that has been reviewed by Mr. Goff and that has been reviewed by Rapid Home, which is really quite short and right there on the screen. That essentially does that. It highlights the fact that Rapid Home is willing to use their IRS classification to be the recipient of donated funds, which funds will be provided to the county to purchase AEDs, which are standardized, that will be deployed into the community, and that the county will coordinate all of that. By county, I mean Darren and Kat. But this is really important stuff, and I'm glad to see that we've made it toward the end of what was a vision several months ago.
Do we now know how many we're looking to purchase, and then have the locations been solidified? I know there's been a lot of discussion.
I do not know those
Okay.
details. I mean, Darren may still be on, and he's unmuted, so Darren, go ahead.
Hey,
He's really good at raising his hand, too.
I last told our public safety committee meeting, we are hitting about 28. We've identified, Mr. Woodson had passed on a few more local venues that we feel we should add. I think we're funding could go as high as 40 to 45 of them. I reached out to all the chiefs, asking them for ideas in their area, of places that if they don't have one, could feel that, would be well served. And, so I've added a few more in there as well. I think we're gearing up to have February as Heart Month, and we're gearing up to be able to roll this out in February. They have about a 45-day shipping, so most likely this will come to the board next month, for purchasing.
Excellent.
Are we going to link that with some sort of CPR AED class or some way to advertise that we have them now when February comes around?
Yes, we are working on that. We're gonna start doing some widespread courses on hands-only CPR, which is what they're really teaching, the general public currently. And, try to blitz all these areas and offer it for every place that we're placing one, offering it for the folks that work around there. Some of them are some local quarters, country stores and things like that as well. So whatever we can do to reach out to staff and get people involved, so the ones that are there are the most feel comfortable using them.
And having this, the same model everywhere helps dispatch. If there's a call, dispatch can help guide people on how to use the devices. You know, a lot of value there. And will there be a crossover? This plays very large into recruitment retention, because as these are deployed into the community, you're touching different diverse groups of citizens who maybe haven't thought about volunteering with their nearby EMS agency or fire company. And it's just another way to touch areas of the constituencies of the community and get them engaged.
You bring up recruitment, retention, Mr. Curry, and that was my feeling when I read this agreement is why is this necessary? Because frankly, for our employees in those roles, this should be something that they're doing anyway. Is there a benefit to formalizing this relationship? Because I frankly don't see any benefit.
Well, we, generally, a citizen who donates money to the county isn't necessarily going to get a tax break from it. And so bringing a third party in, like Rabbit Home, who is 501c3, they can accept those dollars, and the citizen who's making a donation can have, and I'm not a tax attorney, can get that benefit. And so it's an enticement, inducement for that extra donation for the program, but without telling Rabbit Home they've got to figure it all out and do all the work.
Right, and that's certainly not what I'm proposing, but what I'm saying is anyone could be welcome to make a donation to Rapid Home for a program like this. And I know that anyone at Rapid Home who reached out to anyone in Darren's office or that reached out to any chief or any number of longtime volunteers in the county, if anyone at Rapid Home reached out to any number of those individuals and said, hey, we're thinking of placing an AED at location A, B, and C, and we would really appreciate your expertise so that we can place it in where it makes the most sense and will do the most good. I think that would happen naturally. So I don't understand why there was this great push to formalize the agreement. And I know that this has been approved by our county attorney as to form, but are there any negative legal implications if something should happen with one of these AEDs that doesn't function the way that it was intended to, or someone can't access it, or any number of things that can go wrong with devices, and there's an unfortunate outcome? Does this create any degree of responsibility to the county?
Generally, we're protected by sovereign immunity. So I would say we're giving very, very strange confluence of facts that would result in liability on the part of the county board of supervisors.
And the citizen using the AED is Good Samaritan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did understand that the Good Samaritan idea was at play here, but I just think that we're creating a degree of liability for the county that I don't really understand why it had to be so complicated, frankly.
I think the Public Safety Committee really started the whole project, looking into it and asking Darren to
I
do some
think there's
research.
significant value added to the county's involvement in that you have a structured program, standardized equipment, and then you have paid employees who can keep up with it and check in on the devices and have the schedules in place so that while they are now good for 5 to 7 years, still be able to be engaged with the equipment, whereas a fractured network of citizen-provided or business-provided devices, you lose that umbrella oversight and kind of testing of the system to make sure that they are available.
So the maintenance and upkeep of the devices will fall to the county?
There's no expectation that after 5 to 7 years that they'll necessarily be replaced, but I think the excess funds can go towards helping some of that, but there is very little routine maintenance, or if any, over 5 to 7 years, unless they're used.
Batteries or something,
They're long life now.
right?
But I would expect that there could be costs to the county for a program like this, and the capital is covered by donations.
Right.
And there are benefits to the community, and there's certainly a trade-off of potential cost to those benefits.
Well, and certainly employee time as well.
Yeah, against those benefits, absolutely.
Well, these are life-saving devices that are being put in public places to, not all public maybe, to save lives. So I'm failing to see a drawback.
They
Anywhere.
are supposed to all be publicly accessible.
I'm failing to see it. I mean, there's liability associated with everything, but we do have sovereign immunity. There's the Good Samaritan sort of doctrine, and I don't know why, even if this would come back to cost us some amount of money, why it would be a bad thing. I mean, this guy who usually sits right next to me had one of these things happen to him. It's a miracle he's alive.
Yeah, as you know, some of my family members have had that experience as well.
So I was just going to
So I do understand the importance of AEDs, and I think I've said publicly before that, when I worked at an Episcopal church in Georgia, when I was the parish administrator there, we installed these in the offices and in the parish hall for public access and public use. But we certainly never had any anticipation that the county was going to oversee it or the town was going to oversee it. It was our device, and we were responsible for it. And that was that. And we let people know it was there. But we're just continuing to build for a small county large programs, and we only have but so many employees. And there has to be a realization at sometimes that if you're building programs and you're expecting people to manage them, maybe something else won't get done.
Well, I'll just finish what I was going to say, which is that the fact that we have sovereign immunity and there's the Good Samaritan thing, these things save lives. And if it requires us doing something, I support that. Yeah, there's a cost. I mean, you can't put, I'm not saying you're putting a cost on someone's life. I'm not. But this is a good plan, and I'm really glad that Supervisor Whitson and Supervisor Donahue and the Public Safety Committee have gone through this, and I'm super grateful that Rep and Home has extended themselves to help facilitate this program. So I will move to approve and authorize the county administrator to execute the agreement between Rappahannock County and Rapid Home for the section purchase, placement, and maintenance of AEDs purchased with funds donated through Rapid Home.
I have a motion, do I have a second? I'll second. Any discussion?
I think my concerns are on the record, and I appreciate that they are life-saving devices. I certainly have never said anything to the contrary. I just find it a recurring theme that we are making things far more complicated often than they need to be.
Well, I think it is, saving
I know
people's
you want to
lives.
have the last word always, but that's my comment.
Well, I'd like to state for the record that I don't want to have the last word always. I just think, and you can talk after me, genuinely, I don't care. I just think that when you're doing this kind of thing, it feels like you keep on adding more peanut butter to the peanut butter sandwich. But this is real, and we live in a world that as technology advances, it helps save people's lives, but it costs money to do it. And I think it's worthwhile. And I get it. It comes with a cost. But I'm willing to stick my neck out there and say, in the balancing test, I'm going to come out on the side of supporting.
I did talk to Ms. Ennis on Saturday. I bumped into her, and she said she would be happy to volunteer to help the county plot the locations, if that's helpful as well, because she does have experience doing that sort of thing for the county. She was more than willing to volunteer to help us in that regard.
Thank you. I think we all know seconds count when it comes to a heart attack, so I'm very pleased. And Mr. Whitson did a huge lion's share of the effort to find the funding and has found very generous citizens in the county, and I'm very grateful for that.
I just want to add, Ms. Smith does make some excellent points about maintenance. And everybody's right, everyone's right. Seconds do count. We are in a rural area, so to have an AED and to know how to use one is advantageous, if not completely necessary. I wonder though, the maintenance, the batteries, they might be small potatoes when you're thinking about the overall cost of things, but it does create some operational work for some folks. And I just want to say that she makes some excellent points here.
All right. Do you have something else, Ms. Comer?
Well, I'm just wondering, no, I don't have anything further.
All right. We have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No, I.
Thank you. So we
Was that a no or a no?
4 ayes.
Well, I didn't say I, so.
We had 4
Before
ayes.
she said anyone opposed.
Okay.
No, I don't oppose.
All right. VACO voting credentials.
Every year, the VACO asks boards to identify who can vote on their behalf at the annual meeting, which is held at the annual conference. Chair Donahue is the only board member registered to attend this conference. So if the board...
Well, I will move to assign Supervisor Donahue VACO voting credentials.
I'll second for the purpose of discussion.
Discussion.
I think we should just make this a permanent assignment to the chair of the board, unless the chair is not intending to attend, and then it should fall to the vice chair. And then after the vice chair, if neither the chair nor the vice chair are intending to attend, it should fall to the senior member of the board, and then go down in order of seniority after that. This is silly to do this every year. It's just.
I second that. Can we just do this right now? Can we turn that into a motion? I'll second.
I would only say that things like that sound like they're easy, but that's something that staff then has to track year after year after year after year to figure out what did the board say 5 years ago they wanted to do. Whereas when we get the letter, it can just go on the agenda. You can take 2 minutes and say, yeah, do that, and we're done.
Well, I think her point though, and let me not speak for you, but that it would come with chair. You don't have to ever revisit.
Yeah, except for somebody has to remember that in 5 years.
I'll remember.
Don't
Don't worry.
Can't we carve it into a stone?
Yes.
And if I forget, Van, I'll remember.
Put it into this agenda item.
Do we not have a repository of chair responsibility somewhere where that goes in there?
No.
No gold tablets and, no?
You can make a motion for that if
There's
you
not
want.
even a tiara, nothing.
Oh,
Nada.
no throne?
Motions are always in order.
Okay, so what are we doing?
We have a motion and a second.
I think that's a good idea.
Do you want to vote and then go to that motion, or do you want to?
Why this? I'll withdraw my motion.
I'll second, and I'll withdraw my motion as well.
Okay,
Okay, so.
so add it to that motion if you want.
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
it's thoroughly
So-
confused, Gary.
The motion is to authorize the chair to be the,
VACO
Have the VACO
representative of the
voting
Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors in perpetuity,
Their annual
unless the
meeting.
event that they are not in attendance at VACO, in which case the vice chair will be the county have the county voting credentials. In the event that neither the chair nor the vice chair are in attendance at the VACO conference, then that will go down the line through the members of the Board of Supervisors in order of seniority from the time of their first election on the board. How's that?
And as
Second.
often is the case, more than one board member is appointed, is elected, and takes their seat the
And
same
and
year.
in the event that there is a tie in the number of years that the board members were elected to the board, a simple game of rock, paper, scissors shall decide.
Rochambeau. Is that hold legal authority?
Shall decide the VACO voting credentials of the Rappahannock County Board of Supervisors. A gentleman's agreement or the,
Flip a coin?
Are we ready
like
to
rock,
second
paper, scissors.
anything?
I think Van's making the motion that Christine just said. Christine's seconding it, if I understand them, and then we're gonna vote on it.
That,
Yeah.
with the rock, paper, scissors.
Okay. So it was, you moved
I did.
all that?
Yeah.
And she moved second.
we had a
He so
psychic
moved,
connection for
yeah.
just a minute there,
Okay.
and I'll second.
We have a motion, a second. My only further discussion from me anyway is, would it simplify things for the office if we just said it's the chairs? And if the chair is not attending, then the board will vote on it in that agenda item. Because, I mean, it's now 5 paragraphs long as to what we're gonna do.
We're spending more time talking about it now than we would in the
I
next
wasn't
5
on,
years.
I wasn't on the meetings committee for nothing for all these, the rules committee.
This is fine.
Okay, all right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, Rappahannock Rapidan Legislative Program.
I added this after the agenda was released on Friday after a morning meeting where the regional county administrators and town managers discussed the program. And so I say that because it's an addendum item. If the board wanted to take action to endorse it, it would need to be unanimous of those present. Most of the time, most of these items have to do with bigger community issues. The top priority issue for the region, for us, is education funding, and in particular, stopgap funding for small school divisions with LCI greater than 0.6. So that's like really us. So I'm grateful to our community peers for putting that in there. At the end of the day, it's a regional statement of what the region thinks is important. And all the advocacy work that's happening through SIFT, Panther Team 4, and the individual from TPS that has been hired will be much more effective, but it's nice that our community peers are willing to support us. Other items that are important to the community, school construction and modernization, this discussion of who should pay for capital for schools. Routine easements on local government property was an Orange County item that didn't quite make it over the bar last year, and they're trying again. Doesn't really do much for us. It's another Orange County item, is trying to get at some of the good stuff that the superintendents get and bring that over to the county side for VRS service credits prior to employment. I think it's very narrow on its applicability. There's a county administrator in the region who used to work in North Carolina. Let's see. The FOIA allows closed meetings to talk about things like waste management siting agreements, but they don't allow closed meetings for solar siting agreements. So it's probably just FOIA hasn't kept up with what's happening out there in the world. This is very likely not going to ever affect us. Broadband is really just a broad statement that everybody thinks that the state needs to keep focused attention on broadband, including the distribution of BEAD funding. Mental health, obviously, very important in the funding to support that. Transportation almost never has any nexus with our community because our transportation network is so wonderful. With the exception of rural roads, which there's very little funding for. Fortunately, Loudon did get their bill through last year. We're still waiting to see what's going to come out of that.
I think we should wait until next meeting to endorse this.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it was out there, everybody could see it, and that way you have plenty of time to reflect on it. I don't think there's a lot of there, really.
I would just say, when I read the broadband section and it talked about more funding for broadband, I think there's already plenty of money infused into most broadband projects. I think what's sorely lacking in most broadband projects is oversight and accountability. And I have a feeling some of our peers on the RRRC would agree with that.
So that's that.
You just need a motion.
Don't need anything.
Don't.
Well, we'd have, yeah.
It would have to
Let's
be
just move
unanimous,
on.
and I'm not.
And you don't ever have to
Support
endorse
that.
it. You can if you want, and
You can't if you don't.
we would hope our peers do endorse it. Then you can tell your legislators when you're talking to them about school funding in our schools that all of our peer communities in our region support our position. And they're hoping you'll do that for some of their things.
All right, board committee reports. Recreational Facilities Authority.
Donna. Ms. Comer, I believe you were at that
I
meeting.
did go. Things are going very well with that committee. That's a good committee, I will say. They do lots of, they get things done. I admire that. I don't have too much to report. They're actually already working on fodder stack. They're already thinking ahead on fodder stack. So that's all.
Do you have another fundraiser coming, Van? I heard there was a rumor that you guys were going to try to find a second, or maybe that was the foundation, or maybe it's the
Isn't there a
foundation.
pickleball tournament happening or something?
They did that.
Oh, that's
They
over.
did that. I could be,
I mean, there's general discussions about, and that they're ongoing about, fixing the basketball court, other courts.
Playground.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot in the playground.
Yep.
And yeah, so there's two different sort of work streams that have sports courts and then the playground, which each are big capital projects that are still, these things take a long time to kind of plan and, but that's happening, but it's kind of slowly moving.
okay.
I don't recall another fundraiser. There was a pickleball tournament last weekend, I believe. So,
The Rec Authority does have an RFP on the street, or maybe recently closed, seeking kind of preliminary expressions for playground, for a nature-themed playground, just to begin to shape out, well, what would it look like? What would it, what are potential costs, so that they can then step into the fundraising side of things.
Yeah.
Hard to know how to go that route if you don't know what it would cost or how it would fit, and you don't have a pretty picture to show a potential donor.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, we've got another meeting coming.
Yeah, we need to schedule it.
Okay. Planning Commission.
We met, and the results of that meeting are in the zoning administrator's report. It was a very different kind of meeting, with items like more than one dwelling per tract of land and accessory dwelling unit. We'll be hearing those applications next month.
Fire Levy Board, anything else, Van?
No, I think that we pretty much covered it. I do want to say that I just appreciate all of the companies showing up, incredibly organized with all of their receipt books, which are always at least 5 pounds. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
Treasurer's
I guess
Report.
we'll get with Mr. Stender about scheduling a meeting sometime in the next few months. Or
Yes. Yeah.
Treasurer Reports, cash flow graph is usually the,
Yeah, I think it looks as one would assume it's going to look.
Yep.
Obviously, tax collections are good. But the lines are coming together.
yep. Meals and lodging, that was surprisingly good for pre-October.
Yeah, a little bit more than last year.
Yeah.
for the quarter.
So hopefully the leaves will do something that, well,
The
people come out. anyway.
Normal inflation would show up in sales tax and meals and lodging because as the goods, as the menu prices go up, the same tax rate on that higher menu item shows some increase. So you would expect to see, all things being equal, a number of goods sold, that the revenue would just creep up slowly over time based on a cost of living. And maybe that's what we're seeing in that quarter.
Move on to Circuit Court Clerk's Office Revenue Report, if anybody wants to look at it. I think it's good to see. Legal matters, anything new?
Yeah, quite a bit going on. Both Mr. Connick, on behalf of the former Flint Hill Fire Company Board, the board's council, both filed petitions for appeal with the Supreme Court, which I'm not sure how common that is, probably not very.
Right.
So I think now we're kind of hurry up and wait. And I asked Mr. Capps if he had any crystal ball on when this sort of thing could get scheduled. He guessed probably February or something like that. So it'll be a little while. The tourist home case was heard in the Western District Court, Federal Court, on September 23rd. And the court took it under advisement and will issue a ruling at some point in time. And that was on, I think, some narrow things, but we're not sure what they'll do. Harmony Manor, Big Corp assigned HCCW, which is Mr. Capps and Ms. O'Brien, same as working on their other cases right now. Our team filed some documents. They were waiting to the final documents till after the board approved the minutes today for that meeting. So now that that's done, they'll take care of the last little bit and get that filed.
Excellent. Anything else in there anybody would like to discuss? All right. Matters presented by the board. It's only 3:45. Ms. Comer.
Don't jinx us.
I don't think I have anything today.
Ms. Smith.
As Mr. Henry is here today, I just wanted to thank the good folks at REC for all the work you do to get things turned back on for folks as soon as we have an outage in the area. I know there were some outages in Sperryville with the weekend or the weather coming through recently, and everyone reported that they had power restored pretty quickly. And so sometimes you join us remotely, and there were instances even before that recent event where I know there were outages and people, early morning, people got back on very quickly within it was at my house, and when you're waiting on coffee, every minute counts.
Every second.
So I know that it was very quick, and it was one of those mornings, you wake up in a panic, the power's out, and it was very quick that you all were able to get that turned back on. So we probably don't say it enough, and just to see you here, thank you so much for all REC does to support us and be so responsive anytime we have an outage. Similarly, in terms of utilities, I know a lot of folks are frustrated with the work in front of the corner store in Sperryville, where there's been such a rough patch of road because of the drainage work that VDOT started before the hurricane or remnants of the hurricane came through town. The intention was to get that project done in pretty short order, but the weather has delayed the ability of VDOT to come back with the paving crew and get that finished up. I do think it must be a local crew coming through every morning and kind of smoothing it out, because it looks better every morning than it did when I went through it the night before, which is like a wonderful thing, but clearly somebody's doing that. And I know some of the local folks have responded that they've gone through and smoothed that out before. And I looked for a response from Mr. Nesbitt this morning. He was hoping for, here's one. No, that's So I haven't heard back from Mr. Nesbit yet to see if there are any updates for today. But hopefully with the improvement of the weather, they'll be able to get that finished up soon, because I know it is inconvenient and unpleasant for a lot of people. I did just want to touch, thank you, Madam Chairman, for bringing up Hurricane Helene and all of the terrible impacts on the people of the southeastern United States that has had. I've watched that very carefully because we did live in Northeast Georgia for a number of years. And that terrain, I know, is so very similar to our Piedmont, with all of the streams and creeks and mountains and hillsides for water to build and drain. And of course, we try to avoid impervious surfaces, but the more and more things get out, the more and more you'll have more rainwater collecting in low-lying areas. And I just, and I'll leave this to you all on the Public Safety Committee, I do wonder if there are lessons to be learned, particularly in communication and response from a terrible tragedy like that. Friends of mine that live in that area that were the first to have communications had a generator and Starlink, and they were back up. And it's the kind of thing that you see a community, people that had those resources, opening them up to their neighbors, and people just lining up to be able to let their loved ones know that they're okay. And so if there's any opportunity for us as a rural, relatively isolated county to improve our emergency response with some things like that, or action items like that, I think we should look at it, especially since we're putting generators in the schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Carney? The only thing I have is I attended the Rappahannock River Basin Commission meeting at Rapp Cellars. They were kind enough to donate their meeting room for us. And I found it to be a very interesting meeting, one of which was the water situation that happened in Orange. And come to find out it had something to do with the pumps. Is that the right piece? And they only have two, but one of them failed way early, and the oil smell that people were reporting came out of that equipment. So
Not the raw water,
right.
which is important.
Yeah.
Not the river.
But it was an interesting presentation, and obviously everybody's interested on how to make sure our water stays drinkable and safe. So
It's a food grade mineral oil, not to make, just to make sure everybody, it's a food grade mineral oil. However, at high temperatures, weird things happen, and the smell, caused a lot of concern.
It lasted, 3 or 4 days, didn't it? It lasted a number of days.
5 or somewhat, yeah. It was,
It all makes very perfect sense after the fact.
yep,
Yeah, I'm sure.
that's all I had. All right, so we will recess until 7 p.m.